little conversation on the word Sonder, which kind of took a turn when I was trying to nail down the real definition of it, because it's not in the dictionary. It is a neologism, so we got to talk about that first. A little bit of a weird location today. I don't know how the sound is going to be, but if you're watching the video instead of the podcast, I also don't know. It's going to be grainy and weird. But yeah, a neologism. Okay, so Sonder, the word. Let's get into what it's not in the dictionary. It has a definition, but it's a neologism, and we're gonna get into that first, I guess. So, a neologism is basically translated from Greek as a new speech / utterance, is a relatively recent or isolated term, word, or phrase that may be in the process of entering common use, but that has not yet been fully accepted into mainstream language. Neologisms are often driven by changes in culture and technology. In the process of language formation, neologisms are more mature than protologisms? I don't know. A word whose development stage is between that of the protologism freshly coined and neologism new word is a prelogism. Okay, anyway, so it's like not yet in, like it says, it's not popular use yet, it's not mainstream, but it's like getting there. So we're talking about the word Sonder, which, like I said, has a definition, but it's not recognized by like the dictionary yet. Except there is the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which is kind of where everyone seems to be getting their definition for this word from. Website, YouTube channel, John Koenig. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. But apparently he does neologisms a lot and just like defines them and puts them up, and they're in this Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. So, it says here, I mean, there's just history to this word in a different way. Normally I wouldn't provide a history, but it's like, if you went, like I did, and tried to like look up that definition, or also I'm not getting it from the dictionary, and usually I tell you like, hey, this is the definition that I found. But it says that the neologisms, while completely created by Koenig, are based on his research on etymologies and meanings of used prefixes, suffixes, and word roots. So, oh my goodness. That can't happen. I need the light. My goodness, car. Anyway. Come on. Anyway. The terms are often based on feelings of existentialism and are meant to fill a hole in the language, often from reader contributions of specific emotions. Okay. So what is Sonder, if you don't already know? And the thing is, like, we have a cafe here called Sonder, so I just thought it was a word, and I looked it up a long time ago and knew what that word meant, but I didn't look hard enough at what was supplying the definition, and now I have, and thus, here's where we are. Sonder, the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. An epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once as an extra, sipping coffee in the background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. Sonder, everyone has a story. So, the first little bit of this, I'm going to repeat, because this is like a feeling that I get. Like this, I don't know how I'm curious, actually, to know how you interpret this definition before I tell you how I interpret it. Like, how does that make you feel, that whole passage? Like, this notion of Sonder. The realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. Like, that by itself is enough for me, and it's a feeling that I've had, and I don't like it. The feeling, when I get that, oh man, it makes me anxious, is what it does. It makes me really anxious when I think of that. I'm like, oh my goodness. And we talked about solipsism, you know? And that's the thing, is like, it's not like this inherent selfishness in a way that's like this negative horrible thing that I want to just be so focused on myself and nobody else, and no one else has feelings. No, it's not like that. But part of it is an inherent, I believe, like an inherent nature, and not necessarily a learned behavior or something that was nurtured into me. But there's like this thing with solipsism where I just want to, I do want to focus on the self, but in a positive way, and to be a better person and grow and learn and just like reflect on myself as a human being and do things differently and better and improve. So, but this notion of Sonder, of like, again, like sometimes it's just, it's weird. Like it kind of feels like disassociating, but not at all. It feels just like every once in a while I remember like, wow, that person in the mall, like they're a whole human being too. And like it said, like you make this realization that they all have lives just as complex as yours. And they're not just like, I don't think of people as background characters to my story. It's not like a, if I do think that, it's very subconscious. It's not this like conscious thing in the forefront of my mind where I'm like, yeah, they don't matter because whatever. Like, I'm very aware that people are just like me and also have their own lives and make decisions and are affected by things. But it's like when it crosses my mind at certain moments, I'm like, oh my goodness, like that person, like sometimes it comes into effect because I'm thinking that like, man, that person, I don't know what the heck they think they're doing. And then I like think like, well, they probably think they're doing the right thing, or like they probably think they're doing their best right now, or like they are doing their best right now. And then I start to like think of them deeper as like this whole person that is fallible and makes mistakes and is human and like, you know, and like I know all those things. Like those are things that I don't need to be reminded of necessarily, but it just hits on this deeper level where it just like freaks me out. You know what it is? I just realized it. The reason it freaks me out in like this anxious way that is scary and not pleasant for me to think about is like the same reason that immortality and eternity are such huge concepts that I can't think about them without being scared. Like I can't grasp them. I can't like just get a handle on that as like a truth, as like a, hey, if there is an eternal life somehow of like eternity that's different than this life, and you're like a spirit and whatever, and there's heaven and like whatever, you know what I mean? I can't grasp that. I mean, like, I understand what it means to a degree, but it's so different and so vast and huge that I'm like, I don't really know what it means, and I don't like it because it's not what I'm used to. And that's the thing. That's why like this comes up all the time when I talk about being scared of death. Because like either direction, I'm scared. Like if there's nothing after this, that sucks. Because I'm just like, I like this. But the thing is, if there's this other state that's like, oh, it's eternal life and your spirit and whatever, I'm like, that's scary. I don't know what that means. I don't know what happens. And either way, it's not this. And I like this. I like life. Like, it might seem sometimes like I don't, but I mean, like, I like what's happening right now, you know? So, I think that's what it is. It's like, when I really start to hone in on, like, every other human being has this, like, complex, like, life. I shouldn't say every other human being, because, I mean, some people aren't cognitively able enough to understand their surroundings on certain planes or deeper levels. But I mean, that's the thing, is like, people make choices, they have jobs, they do this, they do that, they like, you know what I mean? It's like, when I think of someone else's inner dialogue, that's when it hits me. Like, seeing people out and about is like, whatever, yeah, that person's shopping, I'm shopping, everyone shops, it's all fine. Like, we'll put our pants on one leg at a time, which is untrue, but most people do. But that's the thing. I start thinking that someone else has an inner dialogue, and I'm like, oh, like, you have an inner dialogue too? Like, you're like rattling around in here thinking about stuff? That's crazy. Like, that's what freaks me out. I'm just like, that's bananas. Like, I don't know how to comprehend that concept. I don't know what to do with it. Like, That's not a that shouldn't that's jail. You should go to jail for that. That shouldn't be allowed. Um, yeah, I don't know where else to go with this, but I just realized that's the thing. Like, that's why I do this, because sometimes I have these realizations. That's what it is that freaks me out about it. Is like this. There are, I don't know how many billions of people there are on Earth, or millions. I don't know where we're at with the population of Earth as we know it, but having that many people that have an internal dialogue, that are just living life, and that they are the center of their universe in a way, and like, it's just banana. It becomes an infinite thing. Like, thinking of it, it's just like Inception of like layers upon layers upon layers of like, everyone that I've ever interacted with also has this inner dialogue running and these complex emotions. And it's like, I think that some people, to wrap this up, because like I said, that this notion of Sonder freaks me out. Like, I never had a name for that feeling, but I would get it every once in a while. And I think that a lot of people would be comforted by it in a way, being like, oh, we're all in this together, and like, yes, we're all kind of like experiencing similar things, and it's like this soft, nice thing. And for me, it's not. For me, I'm like, no, like this, I don't know why. I don't know how to explain why that scares me, other than the way I already did. But it's like a weird, uncomfortable feeling when I think of it. Anyway, see you at another time.